Good morning. You are welcome once again to today's meeting. Okay, so good morning. Please, can you hear me?
Good morning, sir.
All right, okay, that's fine. Please, I hope you are all fine.
All good here.
Yeah, good.
All right, thank God. All right, so we are going to do a recap on the basic concepts in anthropology, and then I think that will be the last thing that we will do before our exam. So let us stay cool, and then let's as not disturb the class, and then finish up quickly as soon as possible. Right. So all right. So we are starting. So we are coming to start with as I said, the basic concept in anthropology. Right. So even in our contemporary world, or even in in every society, concepts are very, very important. Concepts are mostly, as we say, intertwined with worldview. Right? When we are talking about worldview, we are talking about the theory of the cosmos. They're talking about the broad assumptions and then ideologies about a phenomena. Do you get it? So the assumptions. So theories are used to explain concepts. Do you get it? So we are talking about the broad ideologies and then assumptions that we have concerning a phenomena. Do you get it? For example, we are going to learn about the concept of a person. What are some of the ideologies that we have about who a person is? How do we classify a person or an individual to be a person in the society? Do you get it? So the subject of concept is very, very important and very crucial to the success of any academic discipline. Right? Concept denotes the various forms of ideologies about a phenomena. Right? So concepts determine the society, the identity or the meaning the society gives to events and phenomena within their context. Right? So they are differently oriented from one society to the other. So how one society conceptualize an event is totally different from how society conceptualize another event. Right. So that is how basically a brief um, idea I can give about what concepts are. Right. So we can, by way of outline, we are going to discuss the concept of a person, the concept of power, the concept of agency, and then lastly, we are going to discuss something on the concept of comparison. Okay. So the concept of a person. Now, the concept of a person denotes how society see and understand a person to be. So, you as an individual, you as a biological being, why is it that we do not consider you or classify you as an animal? Why is it that we differentiate you from an ape, from gorilla, and all those things? Even though we have some biological makeups in common, but then the sociological meaning that we have given to gorilla is different from the sociological meaning that we have given to you as an individual, as a person. Do you get it? So the conceptualization of the identity of a person is different from one society to the other. So anthropologists must therefore understand how the society conceptualize a person before they make the attempt to study that particular person. So if you are going to, you know that anthropologists, one of the characteristics or one of the core feature of anthropology is the way that they gather data, right? That is through field work. And then if you are going to do field work, you do not treat the individual beings or the individual people you are going to stay with as data sets. Why? The reason why you do not treat them as data sets is that the individual beings, they have the ability to make meaning out of the things surrounding them. So they have subjective meanings as compared to what the scientists also study in the laboratory. The variables that they study in the laboratory, they do not have any subjective meaning. Do you get it? That is the reason why every day H2O is going to give you water. Do you get it? But then what you can't predict the behavior of human beings. You can't predict the behavior of human beings, right? So that is so a necessity is therefore laid on anthropologists to understand who a person really is, because every society and the way that they have conceptualized who a person is, right? So field work, as I've explained, so therefore it is pertinent for anthropologists to know how the society they study conceptualize who a person is. Now, for instance, in Europe or American society, a person is considered as autonomous individual who enjoys certain rights and privileges in the society. So in Europe, they base their conceptual their concept of a person based on rationality. So through their rationality, they've given to the individual that they consider a person as an individual autonomous being, that you have your own right, you have your own ambitions that you can go after. Do you get it? That you can go after. So that is how they consider the individual to be, right? So the goals and ambitions of the individual is therefore separated from that of the society as a whole, right? However, the exercise of those rights must take into consideration the collective welfare of the other individuals in the society. So in as much as in Europe, America, they consider a person as being autonomous, right? Then you can't separate the person from the person's identity or from the person's goals and the person's ambition. Even though you have certain rights that you are supposed to exercise, there are certain laid down rules and regulations that shape the way you are going to exercise those rights. And then one of the things is through the social institution. In as much as you have your own ambitions, you have your own way of satisfying your sexual desires, does not mean that you can go about any person that you see, any man that you see, any woman that you see, you can go about and just have sexual intercourse with a person. You can just go about and then just be harassing other people. So in as much as they see a person to be individual and autonomous, right? Your ability or you exercising all those rights, you must take into consideration the lay down rules and regulations that make sure that the needs and then the welfare of other people in the societies are also taken into consideration. Do you get it? So their concept of a person is not centered on religion. However, some of them believe that um there is life after death, but then some of them also do not believe, especially most of them do not believe that there is life after death. So that is how Europe American they conceptualize a person to be, right? The concept of a person now among the Hindu in India, the concept of a person is in the light of reincarnation. So how they've seen a person to be, they see a person to be in the light of reincarnation, to the extent that they think that a newly born baby is not an absolutely newborn baby, but a reincarnated form of a person, of a dead person who lived a good life. Do you get it? So among those people, they say that the concept of a person or the identity of a person is determined by a person's karma or dharma. That is your destiny and the decisions that you take in life. So when we talk about karma, we are talking about your destiny, and your dharma, we are talking about your the decisions. The karma, we are talking about your the behavior that you put, and then the dharma, you are talking about your destiny. Do you get it? So dharma is one's actions and behavior, and karma is one's destiny. So a newly born baby is not considered as new, but a reincarnation of a dead person who lived a good life. So that is how the Hindu people, they also conceptualize who a person is. Do you get it? So in Melanesian societies, the concept of a person is seen to be relational. Now, in a sense that they see you, they give meaning to a person based on the social relations that you have with other people, to the point that if you die, you are not declared dead until the social relations that you have with other people are being um being cut off. For example, if you are married or if you're a married couple and you die, they must divorce you or they must cut off that relationship with your husband or your wife before you are going to be considered as a dead person. And then also, if you die before settling the debt that you owe other people, they must pay the debt and perform certain rituals in order to cut off that social relations that existed that you were not able to complete before you died. They must cut off that social relationship before you will be finally declared as a dead person. So this is how the Melanesian people, they also conceptualize a person to be. Now let's look at in our African world. Right? In an African world, how do we conceptualize a person to be? Now, in African societies, especially in Ghanaian societies, the concept of a person is influenced by religious beliefs and practices. Right. So the concept of a person is influenced by religious beliefs and practices. That is the belief in ancestors. Right. That we know that the belief in ancestors actually means that we believe in life after death. That we know that if you live a good life, that for you to be an ancestor, you must have lived a good life. You must have children. That you must make a good name for yourself. You must die a natural death and all that. So all these sort of place the person in line. Do you get it? So all these assumptions, as compared to that of the Euro-American societies, whereby they see a person as autonomous, but then they believe in ancestors, does not necessarily see the person as an autonomous being, but then you are part of the society. You get it? So the person is to have three components. That is especially in the Ghanaian context, especially the Aken, the Fanti, and all those people. So we see the person as being composed of three important variables or three components. That is the blood, which comes from the mother, the soul, which comes from the father, and the spirit, that is the breath of life. So clearly, the concept of a person is different from one society to another. Therefore, a necessity is laid on anthropologists to know and understand how different society they study conceptualize a person in order to aid the collection of data and comparison of data that they have collected. So that is how the concept of a person is. So the concept of a person in one particular society may be different from how a society also conceptualize a person. For example, in Hilezivi Naomi Nanyungo's article that he wrote, the female husbands without male wives or with no male wives, right? When they were talking about some of the societies and then how marriage also takes place, you see, they consider the female marriage, that is you marrying a female, is was sort of social, has some sort of social significance without any sexual or romantic affair. You get it? But then let's compare it with that of the the um the Euro-American people, whereby homosexuality and all that, but that one, even though in as much as it has sociological meaning, it also has some sort of romantic affair. Do you get it? That should show you that how we conceptualize things are different or are relative to the kind of society that you find yourself in. Do you get it? So that is the concept of a person. Any question? Any question at this point?
Yes, please.
Any question?
Yeah.
Okay, please, you can ask your question.
Okay, so when you were actually talking about the Hindu, said that their concept of person is actually believes in reincarnation. And then a point you stated was, can you please go back to the Hindu?
Yeah, can you see now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's the last point. So a newborn baby is not considered. A, hello.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah. So
listening.
it
I'm
said
listening.
a newly born baby is not considered as new, but a reincarnation of a dead person who lived a good life.
Yeah.
So does that mean that so this one basically, um, from what I've just read now, it means that all those who didn't lives don't have reincarnated like babies or something.
Yeah. So if you don't live a good life, you are not. That is just why we are using karma. You must. See, sometimes we use karma is like what goes around comes around. Do you get it? So what you do is what you're
Yeah.
going to reap. But then the actual meaning of karma is in the concept of reincarnation. That if you live a good life, are you going to be
Oh,
reincarnated,
okay.
or you are not going to be reincarnated? Do you get it? As compared to the African Ghanaian society, we are not talking about reincarnation, but we believe in ancestors. That if you live a good life, you are going to be an ancestor in the next life. Do you get it? But then the Hindu, they are saying that if you live a good life, right, then you are going to be reincarnated in the form of a newly born baby. So a newly born baby is not necessarily considered as a newly born baby, but then a reincarnation of a dead person who lived a good life. So if you don't live a good life, you are not going to be reincarnated. That is the whole idea about karma. Do you get it? Please,
Yes,
you
yes,
understand?
thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Please, do
Yes,
any other question
it
before
is.
you continue? Is there any other question? Right. So let's continue. Concept of agency. Now we have learned about the concept of a person, how we see a person to be. Now let's now understand how a, how the person that's or how we have conceptualized a person to be in the society, how then the person is or how the person become the originator of an act. Yes, you have conceptualized a person to be whether a reincarnation form or blah 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 blah, right? Yeah, whether you are reincarnated or they believe in ancestors and all that. How then does that affect the way that the person behave? So when we're talking about agency, you're talking about the capacity of a person to be the originator of an act. So just know that agents act, but then agency is the capacity to act. Do you get it? Agents act, but agency is the capacity to act. So this also brings the concept of power in, right? So agency and power are sort of related because the capacity to act is sort of centered on the kind of power that you have to be the originator of an act. Do you get it? So when we are learning about some of the theorists, some of the people who explained agency, you will get to realize that some of them explained power to be the manifestation, right? The whole manifestation of what of agency, and then agency to be the agency to be also a whole manifestation of power. So you get to understand all those things as time goes on. So agency is the capacity of an individual to be the originator of an act. So the capacity of an individual to act could be influenced by number one, the inherent ability of a person, that is rationality, and then the socio-cultural environmental factors of the person. Right. So whether you have the power to act or you do not have the capacity to act, they are determined by number one, the inherent ability of the person or of the actor in question, and then also the social factors that the person find him or herself in. Right. So we have 12 minutes. So when the lecture ends, you can tune in, you can join in again, and then we'll finish up with the last lecture. You get it? So the concept explains why people do the things that they do and how the behavior of people are influenced by some external factors. So agency is closely related to power. Power gives the agents the capacity to act. And then this does not mean that those who do not have power cannot be agents, right? Power can come from everywhere. Power is everywhere. So even those who are the lowest form of in society also can be the originator of act, because power comes from everywhere and power is everywhere. So that does not mean that you can only be an agent if you have some sort of political power in the society. You can also see agency in the family institutions, which form part of the symbolic interactionism, are how we interact with each other. Do you get it? How we interact with each other. Now, right now, you are a student, right? And by virtue of that, there's some sort of power that has been given unto you to act as a student. Do you get it? So, in as much as we have agency, that is the capacity to act, the agency can be the university, right? But then the agent, because the agent could be a student and then a teacher. Do you get it? So the agency is giving you the capacity as an agent to act as a student. Do you get it? So that is the concept, the whole idea about how agency is. Do you get it? And then, so the concept of agency. So according to Max Weber, human actions must be differentiated from other animals because human actions is based on rationality, consciousness, intention, reflection, purpose, and meaning. Right? And then also, Durkheim also argues that agency must be studied in the light of formal structures, that is, social facts in which the actors are studied. Now, Durkheim literally explained social facts to be the factors that are external to the individual, that are cohesive of the individual, cannot be reduced to the individual, and therefore also dictate to the individual the kind of behavior that they are also to put up. So, according to Emil Durkheim, if you truly want to understand agency, then you must understand agency in the light of the formal structures, that is the social facts that a person finds themselves in. Do you get it? Because it is a political institution that it determines how power is going to be expressed, how resources are going to be distributed. It is the marriage institution that determines how you can satisfy your sexual desires. It is the economic institution that determines how you can produce goods and services. So if you want to understand agency, then you must understand the way, or you must understand the formal structures that the agent in question is situated. Now, one person that we can also who also spoke about agency is Betty Ayen or Betty Ayen. Now, Betty Ayen defined agency to be the sociocultural mediated capacity to act. Sociocultural mediated capacity to act. So, according to Betty Ayen, she focused more on how the social structures or how our culture is or influence the behavior of the individual. Do you get? So she looked at how agency is influenced by social cultural factors, and then we can also look at Sherry Ortner, right? So Sherry Ortner defined agency to be the capacity that is sometimes conscious or unconsciously developed by actors to actualize intentions or goals. So, in as much as Sherry Ortner also shared in Betty Ayen's idea of sociocultural capacities to act, but then she looked at it in the form that yes, the individual may be conscious of that capacity or unconscious of that capacity, in the extent that he divided agency into two equal parts, that is active and passive agency. Now, when we are talking about active agency, we are talking about a situation whereby you as an individual, you take bold decisions, right? You based on your rationality, you take bold decisions to act as an individual, to be the originator of certain acts. But then the passive agency, you the individual, your rationality is not taken into consideration, but then you are being influenced by the social structures that you find yourself in. So that is his idea of passive and an active agency. We can also talk about the concept of power, right? The concept of power. We have 7 minutes more, so we can also talk about the concept of power. Now, power is mostly defined to be the ability of a person to compel others to accomplish a particular objective, right? Now, power can either be collective or power can be individualized. So, a group can have power, a group can exercise power, and then also an individual can also exercise power. Now, one of the scholars whose idea has shaped our understanding of power is Eric Wolf, right? Now, I think about the, I think 10 decades ago, right? About some decades ago, the the concept of culture was diminishing, right? That people criticize culture, or people marginalize culture, and then sort of increased and then placed power on a pedestal. Do you get it? So Eric Wolf focused on the concept sinking deep. That is culture, as I said. So the idea of culture was going down. Do you get it? And then the concept rising fast. That is power. So Wolf observed that anthropologists tend to view culture without power, while other social scientists have viewed ideology with culture. Now, when we are talking about ideology, now, from Karl Marx's perspective, you realize that Marx said that the culture in the capitalist world are the ideologies of the bourgeoisie. So it's the ideologies of the bourgeoisie that determines the culture in the capitalist world, how property is to be owned. Do you get it? It is the ideology. So in here, ideologies are being defined in the context of power. So it's the ideologies of the bourgeoisie that give them power over the proletariats. Do you get it? So the proletariats and the bourgeoisie exercise their power through the various forms of ideologies. That is the hegemony. You get it? It has become the commonsensical way of living. So those are the ideologies. So Wolf got to realize that power was being marginalized, and then culture was being marginalized, and then power was being placed on the pedestal, that it became the talk of the day. So because of that, Wolf gave us some two basic I think his conceptualization of power was, I think, four, but then he spoke about power that was inherent in the individual. He also spoke about tactical power, spoke about structural power, and then also spoke about power in Max Weber's perspective. But in this situation, we are going to talk about his idea of tactical power and structural power. So, tactical power, we are talking about power to control the context in which people interact or exercise their talents. Right, the power that you have to control the context in which people interact and exercise their talents. For example, when Moses was born, those people who read the Bible in the Old Testament, when Moses was born, Pharaoh got to realize that a baby has been born, and that baby has some sort of God-given talent that could be a threat to his throne, could be a threat to his kingdom. So because of the tactical power that was inherent in Pharaoh, Pharaoh killed a lot of children, trying as much as possible to prevent Moses, that was a newly born baby, from exercising and then manifesting the kind of talent that he has. That is tactical